So in this part of the demonstration, we're going to look at using the MiniWave as a wave folder. Something I hadn't previously patched up and was suggested in a thread on Modular.com. What I'm going to do is start out by taking a sine wave. I'm going to pull that from my blasted VCO here, and I'm going to make a copy of that by feeding it to a mult that's just off screen. And I'm going to bring back a straight copy of that sine wave, the naked sine if you will, patch that into channel 1 on my mixer down here. That way I'll be able to give you the sound of the sine all on its own. The second copy of that sine wave I'm going to feed into my STG wave folder here. This will give us a point of comparison for how a wave folder sounds, obviously. I'm going to take the output of that wave folder and with a longer cable, I'm going to feed that into channel 2 on the mixer. And then finally, I will take the third copy of that sine and I'm going to put it first into a voltage controlled amplifier and then feed the output of that amplifier into the MiniWave. On the MiniWave I'm using the socket rocket chip and on there the Bank 9, the Wonderland number 2 patches, waves. I find are very good for simulating wave folding. Then I'm going to take the output of the MiniWave and feed it to channel 3 here. So what you'll see in the following couple minutes is me fade in the sine wave so you can hear it. Then I'll fade in the STG wave folder, do you a sweep of the input gain so you can hear it changing the timbre, and then I will input let you listen to channel 3, which will be the same sine wave going through the MiniWave. I'll probably tweak the gain a little bit so you can hear a similar sound, and then I might patch up an envelope. What you'll notice is that if I sweep the banks, we get very harsh demarcations between each wave, but if I play with the amplitude or apply a nice slow envelope, you'll get these same similar soft sweeps to what you would normally hear when sweeping the input gain on the wave folder. So in this patch we're using the MiniWave as a window comparator as part of a MARF patch. MARF stands for Multiple Arbitrary Function Generator and was a combination sequencer envelope generator manufactured by Buchla & Associates. So what we're trying to do here is use Bank 12 of the socket rocket ROM with the comparator windows to control the step length of a sequencer with voltages from a second sequencer. What we get is the CV coming out of the sequencer into a multiple. That split, one copy goes into the VCS, which is acting as a slew generator, and the other copy goes straight into the mixer processor. The slewed version also goes into the mixer processor, and those are subtracted from each other. So what happens is after a certain period of time, the difference between the slewed signal and the straight signal becomes small enough that it falls within the window of the mini wave, and that puts out a step to both sequencers. So you can see they're pausing. Right now it's pausing on step 6 for a lot longer than any other step. You'll see if I change the level for step 6, we'll get a different length there. So that's using the mini wave as a window comparator to compare a slewed signal and a straight signal to define a threshold for when a pulse is output. Much easier to do with any of the envelope generators that give you a end of cycle out, such as the maths or the VCS. But it is possible to do with a window comparator as well. This patch is going to use the mini wave to simulate a talking synth. I'm using bank 8 from the standard mini wave ROM. That's got the Votrax SC01 voter chip waves in it. You can see the wavetable moving here. I'm using a sequencer connected to the wave CVN to step through the different vocal waves. And what you'll see in a second is me playing with the envelope a little bit, switching the octave a little bit here to give you higher or lower pitched vocal-like sounds, and maybe bouncing the wavetable around to get some different consonants. Okay, in this next patch we're going to use the mini wave for electronic Morse code repeating. This uses bank 13 or 14 from the Socket Rocket chip. We're going to use a sine wave as our tone. I'll patch that out of the blasted VCO, and that's going to go into my amplifier. I'm going to take that output of the amplifier and feed it to my mixer. And what I'm going to do is take a triangle wave, or a saw wave, to drive the mini waves repeating. I'm going to use a micro LFO. This will control how fast the Morse code loop repeats. So I'm going to take a triangle here from the LFO and feed that into my mini wave. Just so I don't get a lot of clicking on the amplifier, I'm actually going to take that signal from the mini wave and feed it to a lag. And then I'm going to come out of the lag, and that's going to feed the CV in on my VCA. So what I'll do is I'll cycle through a couple of the wave patterns here on the mini wave, and I'll let you hear a couple of these Morse code repeating patches. So we're going to take another look at quantizing with the mini-wave. In part 1 of the introduction to the mini-wave demo that I posted, the quantizing segment uses bank 15 of the standard mini-wave ROM. There's also an entire ROM dedicated to quantizing that's available, as well as bank 15 on the socket rocket ROM. The socket rocket ROM, bank 15, has what are called prayer tables. I'm going to demonstrate some of those now. I'm going to start out by clocking my sequencer. Sequencer is a clay, and just for simplicity's sake I'm going to use my noise ring clock out. So I now have my sequencer clocked. You can see there's one bit on the bus circulating around. I'm going to take the CV output of the sequencer and put that into the mini-wave. Actually, I need that longer cable. So there, down to the mini-wave. I can use this one to get to my clock. Mini-wave is set to plus 10 volts when quantizing. I'm going to take the output of that mini-wave on bank 15 of the socket rocket ROM. I'm going to feed that to the 1 volt per octave on my VCO, and then take the VCO. I'll take the saw out and feed that into my mixer. So what I'll do is I'll move through the prayer wheel tables here on the wave select so that you can hear that being applied to this simple sequence that's running on the clay.